The tomato plant, hands down, is one of those plants that has the largest number of hacks under its belt. And while I've followed all the trends of crazy things to plant under, ways to prune, how to actually plant them, I have made a point of, regardless, even outside of tomatoes, what exactly I'm listening to and implementing in my garden based on what I'm growing and where I'm growing it. Because the type of pruning you do is completely dependent on where you live, how deep you plant it. If you plant it in a raised bed and ground, that will determine the depth to plant at. What to put in the hole, Epsom salt or lime, again, completely depends on the soil that you're going to plant into. And so today's video, we're actually going to go through every single internet tomato hack out there and analyze it with a little bit of science. Now, if you're new here, hi, hello, my name's Ashley. I have a bachelor's in science and soil science, a minor in plant science, and I like to take said science and apply it to all things plants. And what I will say with absolute confidence is I know how to grow some pretty good plants when I have ideal conditions, like my greenhouse. You can ask anyone on the Geek Crew, who, by the way, you just have to hit the subscribe button to be a part of that. It is the free, helpful thing to do for the channel. It helps me to continue to make really great content and beat out all those AI YouTubers that are popping up now. But you can ask anybody. These bad boys were just transplanted from itsy bitsy about 2 weeks ago. And now we have some small monsters in this greenhouse because I'm using different methods. For example, I fertilize every time I water. I actually lean on something called temperature differential, meaning I cool these suckers down big time during the day, down to like 12 degrees Celsius. And then I heat them right up at night. I aim for 20, 25 degrees Celsius if and when it gets warmer outside, because it's snowing, despite the fact that it's May long right now, outdoors at the moment. But when it gets warmer outside, what I'll do is I'll actually make this greenhouse 30 to 35 degrees Celsius for the night. And then I will expose them to the cooler 20 degrees Celsius during the day until they actually get transplanted up outdoors. But those aren't the hacks we're talking about here today, because those aren't internet hacks. Those are scientific hacks that I've come up with over the years of research. And if you want to follow those hacks, I have the videos in the backlog. Go check those out. They're already published. They're up and people are already utilizing them and seeing really fantastic results. Okay, so let's talk about number one, the most obvious one. Let's get this out of the way. The whole burial myth, particularly the burial of organic material. The three popular ones are fish heads, egg shells, and now eggs in their entirety, and banana peels. Here's the thing. Tomatoes don't eat objects. They can't eat objects, actually. They can only eat nutrients. And more specifically, they can only eat nutrients that has been mineralized and become bioavailable. Meaning your eggshell has calcium, your banana has potassium, and your fish head has, who the hell knows what they think the fish head has? Mercury? I don't know. Regardless of all that, none of it, lucky enough for the mercury side of things, is not available to that plant for uptake until it completely decomposes. And it needs to be macro decomposed by critters and then further decomposed into mineralized nutrients that the plant can uptake. This doesn't happen quickly. It can happen quicker in soils that are warmer, so raised beds or tropical areas of the world, but it doesn't happen fast enough to make a real notable difference in a plant that you're only going to be growing for 3 months, even if you are in those warmer climates. Not to mention, if you have raccoons or you have bird issues or mice issues, rat issues, squirrel issues, burying of any of that can and will attract them. Dogs for sure, because I tried the fish head trick for a video years ago. My dogs dug up all my tomatoes. So dogs for sure, raccoons, cats, rats will all go for the fish head stuff. The eggs are notorious for bringing in birds in particular, along with mice. And the banana peels are just, I don't know, they're gross. Mush at the end of the day. Now, say it did work, and say you had some sort of sophisticated system to keep all the critters out of your hair. Well, it still isn't going to help you much, because what you're doing now is you're just babying your plant. And what I mean by this is that plants have root systems, and the purpose for the root system is obviously for stability against mechanical manipulation from wind or people walking by. But their root system also is there to dig. And its sole purpose is to dig for nutrients. Now, if your soil is adequately moist for its entire life, and it is also got enough nutrients in that space, you're going to end up with a really shallow root system. And this isn't a problem if you don't have high wind, or you don't expect mechanical damage, or you don't expect any sort of drought issue in the future. But if you think any of that will happen, then you're going to want a deeper root system. Not to mention, if you're working on building soil health and actually getting more organic material lower into that soil profile, then you definitely want roots that dig deep. That won't happen if the proverbial nutrient is available in excess right in and around its soil root. If it hypothetically did release nutrients, which it doesn't, but say you didn't want to listen to me, listen to that. This one I actually just saw very recently, and that is using matchsticks underneath tomatoes. Now, this isn't organic and it's not juicy, so you're not going to end up with mice or birds or rats or cats or dogs. That's a bonus. And it does contain phosphorus along with sulfur in the actual matchstick head. Now, this phosphorus and this sulfur is very easily mineralized and very easily going to be uptaken by the plants. And even furthermore, universities have shown day in, day out that nutrients, particularly phosphorus and sulfur, are best uptaken by the plant when they're in the root zone and incorporated into the soil material rather than broadcasted on the top like we would do with, say, manures or a no-dig garden, and then eventually mechanically, hopefully moved lower over time. So it checks a few boxes. It checks the box of sulfur is present, phosphorus is present, it is relatively bioavailable or very close to being bioavailable, and it's right in the wheelhouse of where it needs to be for those plant roots. So hypothetically, could you plant matchsticks under your tomatoes and get phosphorus and sulfur? Yes, absolutely, you could. Is it going to hurt anything? Absolutely not. If anything's going to add organic material, phosphorus and sulfur. There is no bad downside to this. The only thing it's not going to do is add enough of it. Matchsticks are very tiny, and phosphorus and sulfur are two nutrients that are needed in quite a large volume and are not near any sort of micronutrient that we would normally talk about, like boron or manganese or something to that effect. This we need a substantial amount of. And unfortunately, matchsticks just aren't it. Now, could you plant a bunch of matchsticks underneath a tomato plant? Yes, you could. But again, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. So, can you do it? Yes. Does it make a difference? Probably not. No. Next up is lime under your tomatoes. Now, this one is absolutely true. 100% true, but it's also very commonly abused. So let's talk about it. Now, if you don't know what lime is, it's not lime in a coconut and a delicious drink. It is like a powdery white substance. They use it for chalk lines actually on football fields and soccer fields, for fun fact. And the reason for why people add lime comes down to three main things. Number one is it reduces blossom end rot, for a fact. Number two is it reduces soil acidity. If you have acidic soil, it reduces it, for a fact. Number three is it adds calcium, for a fact, into your soil. Okay, so here's the nuance to this. There are two different types of lime you can get for your garden, and both are very available. You can get calcitic lime and then dolomite lime. Calcitic lime contains only calcium. Dolomite lime contains calcium combined with magnesium. Now, here's the nuance to this conversation. If we have dolomite lime, for example, calcium plus magnesium, what ends up happening is magnesium and calcium directly compete for the same receptors on your plant root. And magnesium, more often than not, beats out calcium. So your plant will become calcium deficient if you go with dolomite lime and you use it to excess. This is even more particularly true if you have a soil in the prairie provinces or states. If you're in the middle swath that is North America, we have limestone as our bedrock. And lime you buy from the store is exactly that, crushed up limestone. And the bedrock being this means that our parent material for our soil is this, meaning our soil was made from its parents, which were limestone bedrock. And what ends up happening is the addition of this lime just causes the pH to climb even higher. And now a lot of plants, tomatoes included, actually like a slightly acidic soil and not something that's too far on the alkaline side. Not to mention, if your parent material is lime, what do you think that means in regards to how much calcium and magnesium is in your soil? It means there's a lot. And so if you are, again, in the middle states or provinces, the likelihood of your issue being due to calcium or magnesium deficiency is incredibly low. The other side of this is that it could be your pH is too high and now you have a soil that is too alkaline, and so less nutrients is bioavailable for the plant. So you actually want to reduce your soil pH using things like elemental sulfur, for example, but this takes months, if not years, to achieve and is very difficult on a large scale compared to something like a raised bed. The reason for why you're getting this blossom end rot, I can say unequivocally, is due to the lack of water. You are not watering these plants enough in order for them to uptake the nutrients that is immediately available beneath the roots. So you can add lime. Yes, it's probably going to cause a further calcium deficiency. And so what I would rather you focus on is watering. Now, say you're not growing in soil, or say you're growing in an area that is incredibly deficient in both calcium and magnesium, then the addition of lime within reason can help your plants achieve more calcium. So if you're in a potting soil, it's probably pretty common sense that your plant likely is going to have or struggle to get enough calcium, magnesium, particularly if we're talking about recycling a lot of the plant soil out there. So it can't hurt. Don't add a ton of it, and only add it in circumstances where you don't have a limestone parent material and or you're growing in a potting soil. Okay, the next one is Epsom salt. So this bad boy, I think this is probably eggshells, I would say. I did a whole video on this. So putting Epsom salt in around the soil root helps the plant get more magnesium along with sulfur. Now, again, the key here is yes, plants need magnesium, and yes, they do need sulfur. However, too much magnesium results in calcium uptake issues, and you will see exactly that when you have too much magnesium present. So you will actually have worse blossom end rot issues when the magnesium is added. I can say with absolute confidence that you do not want to add Epsom salt underneath your plant unless you have a confirmed magnesium deficiency. The next one that is absolutely legitimate tenfold, and with some nuance again, is adding aspirin to your plant hole. So here's the thing. You can add aspirin to the plant hole, and that is because it has salicylic acid in it. Salicylic acid is known, no debate here at all, it is known for an absolute fact that it helps with plant stress management. This can be caused from transplanting outdoor. This can be caused from plant disease or pest issues, mechanical damage, a hailstorm, you name it. Salicylic acid works. It's a proven fact. Putting it in the plant hole doesn't allow for proper dosing, however, and it's not necessarily put out at the exact right point in time when the plant needs it the most. So what I would actually encourage you to do is to watch my video on salicylic acid and how you can make a slurry formula that you can water or spray in the leaves that can and will help, particularly if we're looking at it for transplant shock, which would, in my opinion, be the purpose of putting it in the plant hole more so than some sort of like long-term all summer use that the plant can get. Okay, so next up is the planting depth for tomatoes. So you heard it here first, Rose. I've been saying this for years, and I'm starting to see other influencers say it as well. But some are actually making mistakes with this. So there's a few that are in very tropical regions that are saying, don't plant your tomato deep, actually just plant it on an angle because the soil is too cold. But the person who was doing it was like in California, very southern California. I'm not going to say who, but your soil's warm enough by a lot. And that one was actually being put in a raised bed on top of it. So that soil's like mega warm. So you actually probably want to do exactly what the original study said, which is planting it to that first true leaf depth. Now, if you, for example, do not have a warm soil, get a soil temp thermometer and only plant the root ball at the depth that is adequate for tomatoes. And that is somewhere around the 60 degrees Fahrenheit route. I say Fahrenheit because that's what all the soil temp thermometers are in. So degrees Celsius really doesn't matter in this case. But that original study was done in Florida. Florida soil is very warm. And the reason for why these plants performed so well actually came down to the fact that the soil was cooler deeper down. And that's where that benefit came from. Yes, they have adventitious roots. And yes, these adventitious roots can do miracle work, blah, 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 blah. But what I will say is that the depth and the temperature at the depth you plant at is the most important part. And if you really want nice big roots, I'm doing an experiment right now using the root trainer pots. And these bad boys allow for larger roots. And one of them I actually flipped over. I only planted these 2 weeks ago, and he's already sunk a root all the way to the bottom. So I can guarantee the root system on this bad boy is going to be much, much larger compared to these smaller containers. Okay, next tip is going to be pruning. When it comes to pruning, you have your classic little suckers, and I think everyone has been told time and time again to remove the suckers. We also have been told to snip or top the tops. So the whole topping thing doesn't do anything. It makes two kind of main shoots, but you will still have those shoots if you follow the instructions I'm about to give you, which is actually to leave these suckers on. Leave the suckers on, and each one of these are going to turn into a stem so that you don't have to top and set that plant back or cause an excessive level of stress. You can just kind of let these suckers do the rest of the work. Here's the thing. We leave these suckers grow, and there is a slightly higher risk of disease and pest issues because we don't have as much airflow and we have a lot more bug highways going on where kind of all the plants are touching or all the leaves are touching themselves, not in inappropriate ways, in very innocent ways. It's hailing. Snow, hailing, rain, actually. So your options here are to leave these on and only remove them if you end up with disease or airflow issues. You also, if you're going to leave these in place, you really want to make sure you spread the plants out enough and put them in proper planting distance to allow for that. If you leave your suckers on, Geek Crew, back me up on this, you will have higher yields. That is without a doubt because you have way more photosynthesizing leaves and you have way more opportunity for flowers to come and become a thing. About a month out from your first frost date, you're going to top the very top off and remove it down to your first flower cluster, and that's going to help ripen all of the plants lower down. So that is what it comes down to pruning. You basically don't until the very end of the year. If there are any tomato hacks I missed or you want me to do a video on, please let me know in the comments down below. This is a video all about the whole temperature differential thing, and that is what Google says you should watch. I will talk to you guys.